everything should be popping up in a second, and you might have to share. Well, actually, it just should pop up. So
Yeah,
wherever I shared it. This works really nice because it's all automatic, Andrea.
Wow, that little broke up.
Yeah, it happens.
I am going to share this.
Okay.
Are you sharing on Facebook, Julie?
Yes.
You already shared to the club page?
No, I just share it to my
You don't
people.
have to because it should be right on the top. So you shouldn't have to share to the club page.
Oh, it automatically goes?
Yep. I have it set up to, this is why I love Get Vocal. It's all automatically set up. All I have to do is hit go. And wherever I scheduled it to be on, Strange TV says, awesome. I get to see Andrea. You get to see her. That's right.
I'm here.
She's
I'm a person.
Is
Alyssa
this
got
on?
her notification
Recorded.
from the club page.
What?
Alyssa got her notification
Awesome.
from the club page.
Javier Jax, this is live, not pre-recorded. This is live, my friend. Let's see. We have
100.
Get Vocal. Awesome.
Yes, Andrea is here, everybody.
Yay.
I know. I feel so special, you guys. Stop it.
All right, we're gonna do the. We have five watching right now on the YouTube, which is awesome. Cool.
Hi,
Andrea's been
YouTubers.
waiting for you to come back. Javier Jack says, "Ooh, cool." Andrea, been waiting.
Glickopedia.
Sam.
Sam Glickopedia.
Glickopedia in the house. I gotta put my spectacles on, or else I won't be able to read your guys' comments.
Sam,
It's getting to that point in my life where I'm.
I have to respond back to her.
Need
Facebook.
spectacles.
I do miss you, Sam. All right, let me do the intro. Let's get all the announcements and shit out of the way, and then we'll go right to the content because we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. We have Mag. What's up, Mag? Andrea Pedia. She's saying, Mag is saying, he says, I heard so much about how much you know. Andrea, the deep diver. I hope to know as much as you one day. Hey, don't we all?
Oh, geez.
Yeah. No pressure, Andrea.
Don't
Yeah.
be careful what you ask for there.
I think we brag about you a lot. I'm just saying.
Well, that makes me feel really special.
Well, I'm telling you, you're the expert.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, everybody.
You
Andrea's
flatter me.
here. Woo!
Oh, it's Xavier, like Professor Xavier. Sorry.
Oh, well, I can always deal with an X-Man who has powers of the mind. That works.
Yeah, like Bran.
Exactly.
Dream creeper.
He's my
Good to
he's
see
my
you,
spirit
Chris.
animal.
Strange TV. Ashley Jordan says, "Woo."
Jordan Dover?
No.
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 Oh, okay. Well,
Alien.
just trying to remember.
Problem. Oh, okay.
Fans off the top of my head.
Xavier. Awesome. All right. Let's play the music. Let's get started. How many people you see on Facebook, Jules?
13.
Yeah, there's like
Oh, wow.
13.
Okay, good.
These guys are pumped.
We're pumped up.
How often do they get a show every single day for like almost a week now?
Yeah. We did the episode. I did 208, 209. I lost an episode, which I'm so pissed off about. We did 210. This is 211. And then we're doing on Thursday. Sheena says pumped. Wow, we're really rocking and rolling tonight. We got 9 or 10 on YouTube. All right, let's get this party started.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Wow, I look really white.
You're gonna have to get over that, dude.
This podcast contains
It's genetic.
language
I mean,
and
I look like I'm really
spoilers.
washed out. I don't have time to fix the camera. No one cares
This
about what the
is
hell my ugly
Behind the
mug looks
Iron
like.
Throne, your unofficial Game of Thrones podcast.
Thank you, Strange TV. He shared it everywhere. That's good. I'm assuming it's a he. If you're not, I'm sorry. Strange TV that used to follow us on Twitter. I could be wrong.
All right, Andrea, if Chris is going to ask you a shit ton of questions, I'll try to keep an eye on the Facebook for any questions that come your way if like you're in the middle of a thought or whatever, so you don't have to feel like you're scattered.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, Joey's going to keep an eye on that. It's it's Justin.
Justin.
Justin, I believe it's Justin who was our roommate at Ice and Fire Con. Justin was awesome. I'm going to give you a J Crew. Yep, that's him. Okay, big shout out. We're going to do it. Hold on, let me write that down so I don't forget. J. Crew.
What's up?
I think
Cody,
I did
hi.
that on the last episode, but just wanted to make sure. Awesome. Okay.
Sam.
All right, I'm going to get you guys introed, and then I'm going to do the announcements, and then we'll give a lot of people shout outs. Ricky, awesome. Welcome. Okay. Let's see here.
I'm so happy to be right here.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Well, hello. Welcome back to Behind the Iron Throne. That's right. Hashtag BTIT for the win, baby. One of your favorite podcasts to listen to when it comes to the Game of Thrones content, A Song of Ice and Fire, and of course, the awesome television show. I'm your host, Chris Gray, and this is episode 2011. We are recording April 30th, and just a real quick, we have a whole bunch of episodes that have been uploaded. You should be able to get them on iTunes and all over Stitcher and wherever you get your podcast. I appreciate your patience as there is a little issue right now. If you're watching live and you've been trying to download the last couple episodes recorded, I'm sorry. It's been a real pain in the ass. The company that we use to host our media is still having freaking problems processing and giving our audio, our podcast to the different places that we send it to. So I'm really sorry about that. They keep telling me they're working on it. I keep uploading the shows. Right now, I think episode 208 is available, but keep an eye out for 209, keep out for 210, and of course, this episode 211. This is why it is critical to follow us on Facebook, to follow us with the YouTube, so that when we have these outages, you guys know that we are not dead, that we're just having an issue, and you can communicate with us there. And of course, you can watch the live shows on the YouTube channel at BehindTheIronThrone.tv. You can also get us at GetVokl, GetVokl.com. And of course, Facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne. Join our Club BTIT group as well. That being said, Strange TV saying smash the like button. Go ahead, give us a couple likes, share it with your friends, share it with your family, but only share it with people that have seen season 8, episode 3, though, because we really don't want to spoil. We try to be very, very careful with that. That being said, I also want to mention that we're going to get this episode, these episode issues worked out. I promise. There's nothing I can do about it, guys. I'm so very sorry. And of course, if anyone was watching live, I'm very sorry too. A lot of people, I lost an episode that we recorded at Ice and FireCon 2019, where we had Lady Gwen from Radio Westeros. I'm really, really sorry about that. We had Tara from Ice and FireCon. She runs Ice and FireCon. I lost her audio, and I lost Nami's audio. She's a cosplayer for all kinds of nerd-related stuff. And I'm going to have them all back on the podcast as soon as I possibly can, and other guests. It's going to be a lot of fun. That being said, we're going to be recording another episode this Thursday, which would be May 2nd. This next episode is going to be all about the comments from you guys. So we're going to try to read some now live on this show, but next Thursday, May 2nd, we're going to be doing a show pretty much just for you guys, and I'm going to recap some of Ice and FireCon in between your guys' comments. Big shout out to everybody watching us live, especially Strange TV, who is a guy named Justin that was our roommate at Ice and FireCon, part of the J Crew. Awesome. Got Big E, Cassia. I think I said your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Kasia. Ricky. We have Ashley. We have Xavier Jax. We have Shaina. We have Mag. Great group of people. You guys are an awesome community. Julie, who do we have in the Facebook?
We've got so many people on Facebook. We've got Alyssa. We've got Michelle. We've got Brian. We've got Gisela. We've got Randall. We've got Cody and Lizzie and Todd. And Glycopedia's joining us. Glycopedia. Gotta love it. We've got General John, Irina, Justin. What up, everybody?
Is that General Jonathan Stoma Starklover?
It is General John Starklover.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'm running on fumes. I'm extremely tired. I haven't got any sleep in 4 days. I'm doing my very best to try to keep this thing going here.
Real MVP.
Real MVP.
Trying. We're going to talk about the MVP of season 3 or season 8, episode 3. So let's dive right in to this. Oh, wait a second. We have Justin in Get Vocal, and we have Lokesh. If I'm saying your name wrong, I'm so sorry. Lokesh in Get Vocal. If you guys have any comments you want to put in the chat, we'll get them read as quickly as we possibly can. Ashley Jordan, awesome. We got a whole awesome panel of Thronies in the chat. All right, so Julie Gray, welcome to the show. You already introduced a whole bunch of people. I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here with Andrea to see you.
Andrea is here, people. The Mistress of Whispers is here.
Woo!
And we're going to dive right in. Andrea,
You guys are funny.
let's talk first about. We're going to dive into some stuff here, but first, let's do like a just a real quick. Let's talk about the cinematography. Let's talk about the soundtrack, the way it was. Before we dive in, like the real details, let's just do like a real quick. How did you like it? Part of this episode. So, what did you think about it being kind of dark?
Okay, so there were moments that were definitely dark, but I can understand them considering the fact that this is the long night. I mean, you guys really didn't expect the show to be, well lit, did you? I mean, there were some beautiful moments cinematography wise. For example, the dragons that are up, silhouetted by the moon in between the clouds. The first shot of the barrier being lit, the trenches being lit surrounding Winterfell. I mean, there were some absolutely beautiful moments in there. Not the Weirwood, but the Godswood in general, the whole entire episode was just absolutely eerily beautiful. So yeah, there was definitely some amazing, shocking moments in there. I was a little underwhelmed with the whites. I felt like it was a little bit more like Army of the Dead. I mean, like Walking Dead. You know what I mean? Less so, White Walkers, where they're just kind of all charging in at you. Even it was a little 300-ish, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It was very comic book, like not so much like what you were expecting from HBO. And for being a 55-night shoot, there were things about it that I wish would have been different for sure. But there were definitely moments in it that I thought to myself, wow, this is gorgeous. Yeah.
Not to interrupt you. I'm going to put my hand up like this so you can see when I have comments for you. You don't have to immediately stop. I just forgot to tell you that in the pre-show because this is the first time Andre's used this new Get Vocal. So I'm sorry. We're kind of doing this on the fly, trial by fire. Biggie says, cheers to the man who saved Westeros. Hot pie, hot pie.
Right.
Tell Arya that Jon was at Winterfell, or she would head to King's Landing instead, going north, and she wouldn't be able to kill the Night King. So yeah, thank you, Hot Pie, for that. Xavier says it was nighttime, back to the night thing. And Andrea Trigg says, yay, Andrea, great name. Oh, you have no idea. Kayleen says, hi, everybody. Cassia says, yeah, I felt it was just a representation of the long night for sure. Sable 7, a new name I haven't seen before. Welcome back, Andrea. So pumped you are here. And, ooh, Kayleen says, ooh, Andrea is here with the hands up.
That's so dope. Thanks, guys. There was a comment that you just read back to me, and I was going to say something.
Was that Cassio says, yeah, I felt like it was just a representation of the long night, or was it Big E's comment?
Which one was his comment?
Cheers to the man who saved Westeros.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so Hot Pie obviously is the man. You have to give him credit, just like Sir
Love
Pound,
Hot
obviously.
Pie.
Exactly. I mean, who's going to feed Westeros when this is all over? But the biggest issue here, and we have to at least give Jon some credit for turning Arya into the sadistic little killer that she is by giving her first blade.
Oh,
just saying.
True. There's a lot of points here. There's a lot of pointing around. We can say this guy was, because I think that Melisandre was the MVP. But before we get into that, Julie and I kind of talked about this yesterday, but I was trying to rewatch this. And guys, I'm sorry, I haven't had much sleep and I haven't had a time to rewatch the whole episode again. But just watching the beginning scene, that anticipation, that darkness, the Melisandre showing up and lighting the swords on fire, the music, the eerie soundtrack, the sounds of the whites in the darkness, it just really set the mood. And I know that a lot of people have been online complaining that there's not a lot of meat to this episode. And yeah, there's some loopholes and some plot holes and whatever, but it's a show. What are you going to do? But I think that overall, Andrea, it was shot really well, and it kind of got to the point. There's way more there's different things we'll have to nitpick as we go along. But how did you feel about the atmosphere, the soundtrack, and the music?
There's so
it says the poor visibility was perfect to add to the sense of impending doom, right?
Well, So I was expecting more doom and gloom, if that makes sense. In the Godswood, that last like little bit with Theon, I mean, it was like high anticipation, but it wasn't like on the edge of my seat anticipation. It kind of seemed like almost like a cheerful tune to me. And that kind of threw me a little bit. So it was the first time that I've heard, them put a piece of music on, an episode that I didn't quite feel like it fit. So there was a moment in there that I wasn't quite happy with the track, and that was the soundtrack in the Godswood with Bran and Theon when the Night King was approaching. It was just kind of too upbeat for me. It wasn't kind of like, oh my gosh, you guys really think it's going to end, but Arya's coming in the cut. It wasn't one of those. It was something's going to happen, something's going to happen, something's going to happen, something's going to happen. And I was just like, okay, but what's going on?
Hey, Chris, you'll like this comment from Brian on Facebook. He said, am I the only one who was thinking of 1989 Batman in the scene of John and Danny flying above the clouds?
That's
Brian,
cool.
it's so funny that you bring that up because that was my brother. Like, we were down the shore when that movie came out, and he couldn't wait to go see that movie. And I was just like, oh my God. But he was like with his little Batman shirt. He was, what were you, like 11, 10?
Like that. That's awesome. Gold star.
Yeah, I love the music in this. But Andrea, you're right. That music with the like that was just, it felt really kind of out of place. But I think overall, the cinematography minus the darkness that, I mean, Andrea, you're right, and Chris brought it up to me later on, which totally made sense, that it had to be that way because it had to symbolize the long night. So it made total sense when, hearing you guys talk about it. It started to get a little better as this show went on. I think because of more fire that was lit and that kind of stuff. Plus with the dragons, but I think the cinematography was amazing. That moment, I still think that that's probably like the most breathtaking moment was when they get above that storm and they're up in the clouds and it's John and Danny. I love that part. Like, it was so just visually stunning, and I'm so glad HBO went balls out with these dragons this season because my God, that was quite the payoff. It was beautiful.
It was probably the clearest shot in the whole entire episode.
Yeah.
The clearest shot in the entire episode right there when the dragons were like up there in the air waiting for Night King, looking for him all over the place just to get ambushed, but still it was literally the clearest shot in the whole episode, but it was beautiful. It was worth every second of it. Well, 2.3 seconds of it.
Cassia says, I think the Dothraki having their weapons lit by fire and going off into the darkness was more for visual impact or just how big and consuming the White Army was. And let me go to Andrea for that in just a second. I watched this with about 150 people at Ice and FireCon, and when Melisandre shows up, the crowd went fucking nuts. When she lit the blades on fire, they were on their feet screaming. And I definitely agree with what she's saying. Go ahead, Andrea.
This was really okay. The Melisandre scene for me was absolutely amazing. I mean, seeing her right up on her own. I'm just trying to figure out how she got past all of those White Walkers, but
right,
plot holes. I mean,
just strolling up like no shit.
She probably took the same path as Ghost. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But she just, rode up, and I love the fact that, when she lit that first Auroch on fire and then they all just kind of lit up all around her. I thought that was probably one of the most amazing things that I never expected, because I was absolutely positive that the fiery hand was going to show up. That didn't happen, but I suppose Melisandre's hand was the fiery hand, so visual storytelling. But it was absolutely stunning, but I was really, really, really upset with the fact that they drew the parallel between the Battle of the Bastards and Jon riding into battle too soon, and fucking everything up with the Dothraki instead. And this is exactly what happened. The Dothraki made that move. What was shocking to me was that the Whites and the White Walkers were there. They were clearly however many, hundreds of feet, away. You know what I mean? But you couldn't see any of their blue eyes even shining in the darkness. And that's usually something that you're guaranteed no matter what, is that even if it's completely black, you're still going to see the blue eyes peering back at you. It was so black that you couldn't even see any blue eyes. And what they could have done was they could have used those ballistas and those trebuchets, and they could have, well, not the ballistas, but the trebuchets, and they could have They could have started shooting, you know, their projectiles ahead of the Dothraki army, before the Dothraki army crossed into the darkness, drawing the whites out. But of course, Dave and Dan didn't write it that way because they wanted to show that Daenerys was just as impulsive as Jon was in that situation, allowing the Night King to set her and Jon up and draw them out and utilize them so that they can basically cut off all their visibility. I mean, this was really, they held the White Walkers back specifically to draw Jon and Dany away, the Night King knowing that Jon means to target them. He sent all of his meat shields first. Kill all of my army, it's fine, because once they kill you guys, I'm just going to raise you guys back up anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They kept the White Walkers back for that specific reason. You know what I mean? And Dany, she made that move. It was the Dothraki were her version of Rickon. You know what I mean? And Jon was like, you know, I know him. I know this enemy. Now you know an enemy, Jon. You know? But Dany was like, he was like, the Night King is coming. And she's like, well, the dead are already here. Well, she had a point, but that she did exactly what the Night King knew she was going to do. The whole entire thing with the Night King was completely premeditated. And you can see that from the moment she lit him on fire. So yeah, I was a little upset with the idea of the Dothraki riding out like that. They could have found a way to wait for the White Walkers or the Whites to, you know, make their first move. Instead, they made that impulsive move, and it was on purpose. I mean, it was even in the game revealed afterwards. They talked about it. They did it on purpose. It was just another moment where they didn't give one that goddamn log.
Well, I was kind of taken aback. I actually have I have a question after this, but I was kind of taken aback that nobody gave any like charge order to the Dothraki or to Jorah or to Ghost. They just went. Like their sickles get lit on fire and off they go, you know, la 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 la, and off they go. Nobody told them to go. They just went, and then they just get sucked up. But Andrea, the question I had to ask for you is, we know that the Night King was essentially playing a game of cat and mouse, and he was playing a very strategic game of chess with Jon and Dany, full well knowing he had a dragon, right? So his whole concept was he was just going to like lift everybody up. He was just going to resurrect everybody as whites. My question to you is, why have the dragon glass? Like, can the dragon glass prevent them from being re-risen?
So that's exactly what happened is that when the whites were taken out, they were done. That's it. They can't be reanimated. Everything that he reanimated was all of Jon and Dany's armies that had already fallen. Those that hadn't been subjected to fire or dragon glass or anything like that. But I don't know if you noticed, but anytime one of the whites was hit, they basically like shattered when the dragon glass hit him. Yeah. With fire, it was a little different. But once the dragon glass hit him or the Valyrian steel, they shattered automatically. Even the whites, which is weird because usually they're just meat sacks. But even they shattered whenever dragon glass would hit them. So that was interesting for me to see. But yeah, it was only Daenerys and Jon's armies that were resurrected when the Night King when Jon was trying to engage him on the battlefield.
Gotcha.
Julie, can you run this for a second? I'm trying to fix something in the YouTube.
Sure, yeah. So we've got a couple of comments. A lot of people were talking about the Dothraki scene, and they definitely do agree. Like, why did the Dothraki just charge in there, balls out and whatnot, which was pretty interesting. But for you, Andrea, I have a question. You know how, and you brought up a really good point when you were talking about how the White Walkers kind of shattered, with the exception of the one where Arya stabs in the upper part, like the lower part of her jaw. She just started bleeding out. But you know, because we're gonna probably skip all the fuck around on this thing. But Andrea, I would love to hear your take on because I asked the panel this last night as we were recording the episode to kind of, what did you think about first, obviously Melisandre comes and she walks into the castle, and Sir Davos comes up to her and she goes, "Don't worry, you don't have to kill me. I'll be dead by morning." But then she has that moment where she's staring at Arya. And I asked the panel last night if they felt that was any indicator that was what was about to happen, which was like a precursor to what happened in that little like dining hall they were in, where she says that. But somebody, I think it was Goat, who said it in our private, chat. Do you think that Melisandre and Syrio Forel are somehow connected?
No, God,
Okay.
no.
Okay. I wanted to get that out of the way just in case.
On this one occasion, no, I don't think that there's a Syrio Melisandre connection. Honestly, Melisandre is 100% the red priest. And Syrio Forel is 100% Braavosi, and he is probably 98% Faithless Man. So two different organizations. Nothing to do with this. Something that's really confusing, and I do want to bring this up, is that I don't necessarily know if we've seen the last of the Night King yet. And I'm not saying that he's not dead. I'm just saying that it can't be this easy. With Bran still being marked by him, and it could have just been a decoy, but episode 6, the filming shows Tom Washilla, which is Jaqen H'ghar, the girl who plays the waif, the guy who plays the Night King. All of these people are all in Belfast, where they're filming the burning of King's Landing. So it's all really interesting to me. And so I'm not sure if we're going to get more flashback sequences or not. But the one thing that I got from this whole entire episode, as far as the Night King goes, is that there wasn't enough information still.
Yeah. And is it, I don't remember. There wasn't a whole lot of information given about him in the books. There was basically just kind of like just random here and there stuff. Is it prototypical that he doesn't speak? Because he just stands there and stares at Bran and then goes to reach for the sword. You would think that there was going to be some dialogue between him and Bran, like Bran saying, yeah, here I am, come and get me. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that there was ever going to be any like verbal dialogue between the two of them, because even in the books canon, it's not a speech; it's the mimicking of sounds that you would hear in normal nature. For the Children of the Forest, it was like water tinkling in a stream. You know, the sound of wind and leaves. You know what I mean? Natural sounds of the environment. With the White Walkers, it was the sound of ice cracking,
Right.
or frozen streams, things like that. So that's what their speech is now. I think that doesn't mean that Bran can't communicate with him. He's clearly free thinking. He's clearly has the ability to feel emotions, which is something that I think we've all kind of had the idea of, this whole entire time. He's kind of showed off as a little bit arrogant in this episode as well, but that's just because up until that very moment,
He was winning.
He had seen everything.
Yeah.
He knew everything that was happening. He'd seen anyone who was he's seen everyone who was anyone, but he didn't see no one.
Jeremy says, Andre, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Xavier says, no, I think she saw her in the flames. Probably talking about, I missed some of what you guys said because I was trying to fix something.
Arya.
And I'm sorry I missed a bunch of YouTube comments. I'm working on it, some problems. Kayleen says, I kind of wondered if he was going to make his way back as well. I wouldn't say it was easy, but damn, I didn't expect him gone in episode 3. Laugh out loud. Cash B says, Arya has to have his mark now. He had a hold of her throat and wrist. Kayleen says, I feel the Night King, just like those dramatic ass diva, pauses before showing off. Xavier says, me neither. If he's gone by episode 3, someone big must be about to die last other than Cersei. Biggie says, Night King blew 28-3 lead in the 4th quarter.
I love the sports references by our Game of Thrones nerds, but I actually have one, and this is kind of goes to, I want Andrea to answer this. Todd says for 8 seasons, we got Winter is Coming. And then all of a sudden, it didn't seem like a very long fight. It seemed like one episode and that's it. Did you feel, Andrea, that it was, I don't know, that it kind of left something to be desired? Like we literally hyped this up that winter is coming, winter is coming, winter is coming. A whole season of last year was, what do we do to prepare? We get to this moment and 80 minutes it's done and the Night King is dead and now we're off to the next battle. Like, did you feel a little let down?
Okay, so the fangirl in me wants to say yes, absolutely. I felt let down. But the reader in me knows that if I was reading this in Winds of Winter, I'm going to be reading this over the course of 54 chapters. Not necessarily, or more or less, but not necessarily 80 minutes of television time. And we have to, as viewers, remember that they're fitting in 2 books into this last season, Dream of Spring and Winds of Winter. So episode 3 is basic. 3.5 is the midway. You know what I mean? Or no, episode 3 is the midway. You know what I mean? So what do you really expect? I mean, this was the war for ice, and now we have to move on to the Battle of Fire, basically, which is down in King's Landing. Anything that's north of the wall, anything that's north of the neck is always going to be ice related. Anything that's south of the neck is always going to be fire related. Always, it's the mirror end of each kingdom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to expect that it was going to be done early. It was going to be handled in one episode. I mean, there's going to be some cleanup, obviously, going into episode 4. And there was a few things that I saw in the previews. For example, Jon and Dany are leaving and Sansa is remaining behind. So there is definitely going to be a lot of things that are happening in episode 4 that are still going to be like War for the Dawn, post War for the Dawn, cleanup, etc. But as far as like the backstory, with us knowing so little about the Night King and George R. R. Martin promising that us knowing, that we're going to know enough, I have to speculate that there will be more answers to come. Why Bran flew off on those ravens when he did, what was he actually expecting? When did he put everything together?
I think he was scouting to find him.
Well, yeah, I think so too.
Or draw him out.
I think that too. I also think that he was possibly keeping it, tabs on where everyone else was, on the game. If you think about the battlefield and Winterfell, it was a huge civis board.
Yeah.
And so he's keeping track of all of, the players in the game at this point.
Andrea, did you enjoy the scene where and we're kind of jumping around here because I kind of lost track of what the hell we were talking about. So I'm just going to ask you a couple different scenes that you liked. The fire scene where Dany is on Drogon and there's a Night King and he's looking up at her and she wails him with fire, Dracarys, and he's burning and all this, and I'll give you what Yardley said. It was funny on last night's episode. But he's burned. There's fire, and nothing should survive that. Of course, the Night King is way, way colder, so he survived, and he's looking at her, and then we finally get an emotion from him for the first. He smiles at her.
He smirks.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's funny because Yardley said, "Why didn't that dumbass make his ice spear and throw it at that moment?" And
right.
It was just funny, like they couldn't do that because that would kind of. It's not part of the show, but it was funny, like. That whole scene, and I was like hoping at that moment. A lot of feels that was the end.
I thought Drogon was gone for sure.
I didn't think that Drogon was going to be gone. Main thing is because he has so much battle practice at this point, and dragons are intelligent. They're more intelligent than humans,
Right.
and that's something that we learn frequently in the series. I wasn't concerned necessarily with Drogon being hit by the ice spear necessarily. I was more irritated by the fact that they didn't remember the fact that they already hit that fucker with fucking Dragonfire last season, and it didn't fucking do anything. He walked straight through it. And so when Bran made that comment, I don't know, no one's ever tried. Were you not watching us when we were down at the Megamore Quarry and Beyond the Wall and got fucked up on the lake, dude?
I forgot about that.
We did try it, and he walked straight through it. So yeah, no, I knew Dragonfire was never going to be, an option for him. There has to be more than that. It had to be more than just regular fire. I mean, or any fire whatsoever. If that was the case, why not just go to the Lands of Always Winter and burn the whole fucking thing down? I mean, it was never going to be that easy. That's why the whole entire idea of Dragonsteel or blood magic or anything like that. And I definitely think that there is still blood magic in play with how Ari was actually able to slay him. But we'll cover that when we get there. But
Robert says he probably couldn't see to the flame, and Xavier says, "So glad and lovely to watch a dragon battle. The Dance of the Dragons in the Sky was fucking awesome. Probably one of my favorite scenes in this episode, and I really got to go back and watch it. And just an awesome scene, seeing those dragons go at it. That was a huge payoff, at least for me."
So, Chris, a couple things from Facebook. One, Cody says, "This is why you are my queen, Andrea. Put all maesters to shame with your knowledge." But Irina brings up a very valid, she has a really good comment on here. And I was kind of hoping that Andrea could pontificate on this one. She writes, "So they stated that they knew 3 years ago that Arya would kill the Night King. So what signs have you guys seen to foreshadow it? Anything that would point to some of the aspects of the prophecy? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot as far as how Arya has been developing lately."
So are we going to jump right into that? Means it's Arya Ahai. Do you want to jump into it, Andrea?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, I want to read a comment that Irina had made on the page following the episode, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, please.
Go for it.
It was really good, and it was probably the most well thought out answer that we've had in essence of how we explain the Arya thing. But I think I can take it a little further, especially going with that "they knew 3 years ago" comment. So she says, I mean indirectly. The consensus is that the prince that was promised brings the dawn, and the darkness flees before him. He's also supposed to be born in salt and smoke, have a burning sword, and, according to other sources, have a song of ice and fire. At this point, I'm 100% sure that Melisandre is the prince that was promised. She brought ice and fire together. She invoked fire to light the weapons that fight on the side of the living. Plus, she is a descendant of Shiera Seastar. Plus, if she's a descendant of Shiera Seastar, then she is a Red Star when the Red Star bleeds. Makes sense. Mel was tired of putting all her faith into unreliable visions and into all these false heroes who turned out to be the wrong choice, not to mention other mistakes that she has made. She took matters and destiny into her own hands and forged her own path and worked her prophecy to fit the needs that they had, instead of waiting for some divine force to do it. It's a perfect arc. Why wait for a savior when she can take action herself? She forged and used a perfect weapon, Arya. She knew that she would be the only one who would have a chance of even reaching him, and she took advantage of that. She knew it from the moment that she met her, but it was too blind to see it at the time. She brought up their past encounters, and she brought up the lessons of Syrio and all that it took, and all it took to set Arya on her path. That said, I wish that Mel would have showed up riding into the Godswood instead of the field of battle. I would have been nice to see her tie in with Bran, and have them even exchange a brief word before she heads out to ignite the weapons. It could have been meaningless words, but I think it would go a long way into making it at least somewhat orchestrated. Like they could have said, "The long night is here, and it can only end in death." That would have been enough to foreshadow that only death can kill the Night King, and death is Arya, and that at least one of two of them, Bran or Mel both, would die. And then finally, I really would have liked to have, for Bran to do or say something to the Night King, anything. Ideally, I would have liked to see Bran's skin change the Night King, even for a split second, and say something like, "I looked into the heart of winter, and that is not how our song ends," or anything really. And then as the Night King fights his way out of Bran's mind, Arya comes in to pass the White Walkers, and as the two are locked into a skin changer fight, she kills the Night King, taking Bran's life also in the process. But even without that, every single liner would be a good closure with Bran and the Night King. Anything. Come on. This would have added 1 minute tops to the episode and made such a huge difference. She was right about all of this.
There's a lot of comments on YouTube in regard to that. I'll just read them real quick, just because it makes sense. Robert says her entire arc, because we were talking about Arya Ahai. Big EC says a little girl Leaf made the Night King with a dragon glass dagger in the weirwood, and a little girl with the Valyrian steel dagger undid the Night King in the weirwood tree also. Kayleen says, okay, my only thing with them saying 3 years ago is, does that mean that they deviated from what George R. Martin planned in the books? Go ahead, Andrea.
I wrote down my answer about that. It says they had known for 3 years that it will be Arya, which doesn't necessarily mean it's canon. What they said was they knew that Jon Snow is supposed to be the savior, but it just didn't feel right. So I don't know if that means that, yes, it's going to be Arya in the show and in the books, or if it means that they fucked it up in the show specifically because they fucking could.
Did you think that... Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think that it's going to be a mixture of both, if that makes sense. I've always been of the opinion that Arya is Jon's dark sister. Always. And so for me to say that I don't see Arya playing a role in the destruction of the Night King would be a lie. I do see it. I mean, there's no other reason for her to go and receive all that training to become death, and all the comments from Sansa, no one can save me. There's so many different comments, in season 6, for example, when Jon's like, I'll protect you, I'll never let him hurt you again. And she goes, no one can keep me safe. Well, it's just these little itty bitty things where you're just like, are we talking about no one, or are we talking about nobody? You know what I mean? So there's been a ton of different clues that Arya's fate is bigger than anybody knows. And so it doesn't surprise me that Arya played such a detrimental role in this. But there's always a chance that this was just embellished by Dave and Dan. The biggest issue I have with it, though, is that everything is supposed to start and end in the same place, which means that Arya, she's going to play a role in this no matter what. But she's Arya Darkheart. She's, she's a wolf child. There's just so many different, even in the books, there's so many canological things that are mentioned that, lead us to believe that Arya has a destiny that is tied to piercing somebody through the heart, or her own heart is too dark, or she's, darkness come again, or she's nobody, or she's death, or she's an avatar of death, or, all of these things.
So you don't think she's Azor Ahai?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Can I comment on the Azor Ahai comment there for a second?
Yes.
I don't think that anyone is Azor Ahai. Here's why I say that, because, and I'm not, you guys know I'm not good with the theories. That's Andrea's department. She's awesome with it. For me, I believe that the Azor Ahai thing is something George R. R. Martin put in the books to give us some kind of history, like some kind of backstory of an ancient prophecy, an ancient story that he knew we were all going to think was actually going to translate into the current time period of the books we're reading. And it's brought up, Melisandre spits it at us in the show and in the books, yada, yada, yada. So I don't really necessarily think that there has to be an Azor Ahai. I think that it's kind of like, you start talking about Greek mythology, was it real? Was it not? Does it really matter?
Right.
George R. Martin quotes prophecy as like a treacherous woman.
So there you go. So
you never know what you're climbing into bed with. The other one is magic is like a sword.
That's right, George R. You don't know, bro. You don't know.
So there's this thing called self-fulfilling prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
Cersei is the prime example of self-fulfilling prophecies. Everything that she's going through right now with her Valonqar thing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It wouldn't necessarily have happened, but she's been so obsessed with it that she's basically bringing it to life. Daenerys being barren, I think, is going to be another one of those self-fulfilling prophecies that we're going to have to tackle before this is all over. She's not going to believe it, even if she finds out, you know what I mean? Which is possibly going to bring that into reality, that she'll never have a baby because she's going to fucking jeopardize herself every fucking time. I mean, it's a possibility. It is what it is. So Azor Ahai is one of these things where you have a prophecy. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a true prophecy unless you actively try to go about making it. So who's to say that if Jon Snow would have stabbed his sword through Daenerys' chest or whatever, that the sword wouldn't have lit up on fire? Sure, but who's to say that he wouldn't have done it without it anyways? You know what I mean?
That's a good point. And I want to talk about Jon Snow in just a second. But first, Ashley says, I would love it if Mel was the prince who was promised as opposed to Arya. So that's kind of interesting. Xavier says Mel is like 400 years old, so maybe an ancestor. A lot of comments here about the Night King from Big E. He says, I was expecting Arya to help Jon defeating the Night King. And that's that's something I'm disappointed with a little bit is here's Jon. He's going after the Night King, right? He's trying to go to Bran. If you guys remember that particular part of the episode. And, here I am thinking that Jon Snow the whole time, and I think a lot of people thought this, that Jon Snow is supposed to be the hero, and we thought that they were going to have a showdown. The Night King standing there, Jon standing there, and Jon's running after him, and the Night King's like, "Fuck this! I'm not dealing with you."
That pissed me off. That pissed me off.
I agree.
The dead, right? And now I'm thinking, okay, we're not going to have this sword fight, and then I'm thinking, what? So then, it progresses, and then Jon's trying to get around Viserion, right? The dragon's there, blowing blue fire and causing all kinds of hell, and I thought the dragon had died, but apparently here he was tearing the shit out of Winterfell, blowing the blue. Oh, it was freaking amazing, right? Now, Jon's stuck. He cannot progress forward. And I'm thinking either Jon's going to kill the dragon or Bran, the wheel creeper, is going to die, which I was kind of pulling for. I was kind of like, what was Jon? Like, Jon, I thought was supposed to be the hero. And I think a lot of people thought that. And then here comes Arya. Well, then, Theon, tries to stab him, and that was an amazing scene. God, that was amazing what Theon was doing. It was a very a heartfelt moment. And here comes Arya, like a spider monkey ninja out of the weird, which you're like, whoa! The Night King. And when I was watching this with all the people at the Ice and Fire Con, we all cheered like there was no fucking tomorrow. But I cannot say that I was slightly disappointed with that because Jon Snow this, Jon Snow that. Jon Snow was resurrected from death. Arya wasn't. So what the fuck is Jon Snow's big arc? Andrea, I have a feeling you have this.
Well, you just said something that completely isn't actually true. You said Jon Snow was resurrected from death, but Arya wasn't. But Arya basically gave her life to the many-faced god when she drank that poison from the pool. Arya has been resurrected. Arya is a servant of the many-faced god. She's a servant of death, which means death can't actually kill her because she serves him. But she delivered death. And she delivered death to the faceless men too, which is interesting, which is another implication of why Arya is such a badass, is because she is an agent of death, basically. In essence, she's almost like marrying death when she basically swears herself to the to him
That's
with many
true.
faces. You know what I
That's
mean?
very
She's
true,
like
yeah.
a bride of death. So she's an avatar of death or something like that. I mean, there's so many different ways theologically to look at the situation with Arya, but I will say this. Okay, so Melisandre showed up and she stole Gendry. Well, she didn't really steal Gendry. She bought Gendry from the Brotherhood
Yeah.
Without Boundaries,
I'm with
right?
you.
So she meets Arya and Gendry's pissed. He's like, I wanted to be one of you guys. And I posted this on our Facebook page 1,000 times, so I'm sure everyone knows where I'm going with this. I wanted to be one of you guys. She looks at Gendry and she says to Gendry, you can never be one of them. Your blood will make kings rise and make kings fall. And everyone tells me all the time. She was probably talking about all the War for the Five Kings and Balon Greyjoy and all of them, blah, 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 because Robb Stark is dead. And I just don't fucking buy it, right? So Gendry's blood is supposed to make kings rise and make kings fall. So we have kings that have risen, basically, because Stan's rose a little bit, right? But you have blood that makes kings fall. Melisandre on the wall then tells Jon that by their joining, they would create life, and life is power. If Gendry and Arya slept together the night before the battle, boom, you have power in their joining, because he has the power of king's blood in his veins. And now you have a magical sacrifice or a magical ceremony of some sort that gives Arya some sort of power that no one anticipated. If that makes sense. Does this make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I can see that. And just while you're talking about Arya real quick, what a badass this whole episode.
Yeah.
She's on fire. She
She's such
is a freaking ninja.
I will say I was wrong about the chase scene. I mean, obviously it was a chase scene, but I didn't think that Arya was actually being chased like she was being like scared. She was literally running for her fucking life. I thought Arya was setting somebody up again, so I was wrong about that, and also in the episode that it was going to be in. But still, I don't have any complaints about Arya this episode. Not at all. But I do think that I think that part of her luck in the situation with the Night King has to do with the fact that she joined with Gendry. I think that to count that those little instances out with, that same time she met Melisandre, I see darkness in you, child. Many eyes will close, brown eyes, green eyes, blue eyes.
As soon as she said that, I knew.
Gendry Baratheon has blue eyes too. I don't think Arya's done closing eyes, if that makes sense to you guys.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
And she
I think somebody actually, I can't remember. I think it was Eric G. I'm just gonna call you Eric G because I can't say your last name. He made a very interesting point that the green eyes could be Cersei's.
Well, yeah, or Jaime's.
She has green eyes. I don't remember.
She does.
Or Tyrion's. I'm just throw that out there for you, or Tyrion's.
Listen, she's got a lot of people that she could go after, but I think she's going to stick to the list.
Well, now here's a question.
I think
there's actually a couple questions here on the Facebook. Or I'm sorry, I'm on YouTube. I'm sorry. Xavier says, how do they kill them in the books without a great lord? He also says, I wonder how the books will end it all. And I'm curious as well.
Wait, hold on. Chris, I'm sorry. What
Hmm?
I don't understand the question. How do they kill who in the books?
Without a great lord. I'm wondering if he's talking about the whites. You have to clarify for me.
Because there's no Night King in the books. He's just a fable.
Right. Yeah,
okay,
we don't
right.
The
only answer I can give you about that is pure speculation. It has nothing to do with anything canological, which I don't think is really worth mentioning at this point, because I can speculate all day and I'm pretty much on point usually most of the time, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be right. So I can't answer that. We don't have a Night King to draw an answer off of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He says the others. Cassius says, without Jon, there would be no Arya Darkheart. He was the only one that encouraged her love of sword fighting, etc.
He nurtured it.
Robert says, Game of Thrones has always subverted expectations, so it's no surprise to me that it was Arya rather than Jon killing the Night King. Let's see. Xavier says, how will he kill them? And Robert saying, also, Jon may possibly be the hero at the end of the game. Maybe for the good of all, you may have to kill Dany to really break the wheel.
No, stop saying that stuff. Stop saying that shit.
I don't think that. I don't think that's going to happen, Julia. So don't worry about it.
Okay, because stop that.
A lot of people are saying that, though. A lot of people are speculating.
Yeah, I don't know why. They gotta stop that shit.
Okay, so there was a photo that was circulating during filming season of Jon leaning over Dany, and they're in a tent, canopy tent or whatever, and everyone thought for a moment that it was the moment that Jon plunged his sword into Dany's heart, but still doesn't make any fucking sense because we're not dealing with a supernatural issue right now. We're dealing with Cersei fucking Lannister.
Right.
What I worked out from that actual photo was it's the scene where Dany and Jon are outside the waterfalls, and it's actually not an Azor Ahai moment, so everyone can pipe down on that.
Robert says Dany must die. Do you agree with that?
No.
I think that, again, this is one of those things where you have a self-fulfilling prophecy situation. I think because Dany believes that she'll never have children, and even if she finds out that she is having children, assuming that they go that route in this season, Dany's going to put herself in danger, and she's going to die in childbirth because of it. Because Dany's own self-fulfilling prophecy. If Dany dies, it'll be because of Dany. It won't be because of anybody else. It won't be because Jon has to put her out of her misery.
Right.
I think it'll be because Dany feels like she needs to prove herself, for everybody who she wants to believe in her. She's in a situation now where everyone wants her to prove herself. You know what I mean? Oh, you're a tyrant. You're this. You're mad. You're that. You have dragons. You're just like your father. You're the Mad Queen's, daughter. You know what I mean? And Mad King's daughter. All of these things. And Dany has forgotten lots and lots of pieces of who Dany is over the last, 2.5 seasons. She went from knowing that it was a duty to it being a birthright. And Dany's losing herself, in that aspect where she earned all of these people's trust and they follow her because of these reasons. Now she's forgetting that, and she just doesn't understand why, why it is what it is now. You know what I mean? And so she's in a situation where she basically has to prove herself all over again. And I think that is going to push her. And she's kind of all over the place. I feel bad for Dany, but I see Dany self-sabotaging herself more than anything. I don't see her going mad. I see her self-sabotaging.
So since we're talking about the Mother of Dragons, and we kind of Chris touched a little bit about it when he was describing what Jon was doing in the courtyard with the dragon, Alyssa brings up a very valid question, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
Is Jon Snow a true dragon and not affected by fire? Because if he isn't, then he should have been able to race right after and kill the dragon, right? Or did he not realize he probably could do that?
See, it's all very ambiguous in my opinion. Dany's not herself inherently susceptible to dragonfire, but in the books she's only able to do that through blood magic or through a magical sacrifice. With Jon it was a little bit different, and I think we have it demonstrated last season when he fell into the lake first and he got back out and he was still able to move and function and lift a sword, knowing damn well he was just in freezing water, which causes hypothermia for God knows how long, however many minutes. He was down there for an ungodly amount of time. Right. He still got out. And when they put him on the boat and they started stripping him out of his clothing was ice, like literally rock ice. And they peeled all of his clothing off of him, and his chest, where all of his scars are completely blue. His body is completely blue, and he's breathing. He's breathing. So you have your first example of, does Jon have some sort of immunity to ice? Right? And then Dany, so he's down there and he's he falls off of his dragon and everybody's rushing towards him, and Dany comes and she all of a sudden just starts lighting up all these White Walkers, right? All these whites, and Jon is standing legitimately in the path of the flame. Any person, Tyrion or Lannister, even when they had the battle at the Blackwater Rush, even if you were in close proximity and the flames came near you, you were dusted. You know what I mean? But right, Jon was literally right on top of those flames when Dany passed over him twice, and they didn't have any effect on him. Then I also noticed that when the Night King finally engaged Dany and Jon, obviously he came up and he hit Jon, and Rhaegal first, but he wasn't even going after Jon and Rhaegal. He went straight for Dany. Why? Why are you going for the biggest dragon? Why are you going for Dany? Why? Because Dany is all fucking fire. I'm kidding you not. He was firing full blast at Dany and Drogon. Full blast at them. And it was everything that she could do just to avoid it. And I think it was because he understood that Dany is fire, not ice, where Jon is ice. He had a better chance of attacking Dany than he had Jon. I honestly believe that the Night King avoided Jon because he knew that Jon was impervious to the ice fire. So when you see him running through Winterfell and Viserion lands and he's shooting his blue flame everywhere, you see Jon duck between. First of all, he ducks behind a wall that could have easily been exploded. I don't understand bad storytelling, whatever, because he destroyed the wall. Why the fuck why isn't he able to destroy that hallway, the rookery, where the rookery is? And then he hides behind the rubble in the yard right before he gets ready to jump out and he gets to get ready to slay the dragon. He hides behind the rubble, and again the fire literally washes right over him, and Jon's just down there panicking, but he's not actually burning. And in my opinion, I think that's pretty fucking telling. So I don't know. I can't say definitively that Jon isn't, he's fireproof via ice or regular fire, but I can say that it definitely looks like, if nothing else, that the Lord of Light is still protecting him or shielding him.
Well,
Yeah,
do you
I
think?
wonder-
Oh, sorry, Chris.
I wonder if I wonder if it, because now the Night King is dead, so I wonder now if it's going to make that much of a difference, and or he did burn his hand back. What was it, season 2?
He tempered it.
Yeah, but maybe because now he was brought back to life, that he's more resilient to fire. Or I don't even know if it matters anymore. In the books, I'm definitely. I see. I'm wondering if this spoiled some of the shit that's happening. I mean, something's spoiled from the show to the books, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
maybe
Oh, yeah.
Arya is not actually who does the deed. Maybe it is Jon, and maybe Jon, who I thought was going to be more resilient to fire. I just feel like I'm disappointed with Jon this entire episode. Not a lot of lines, and
7 words.
that's it, right? 7. And
7 words for Jon and 7 words for Dany total.
I felt like he floundered a lot, like I feel like Jon lately has been getting his ass saved by other people.
Well, I think also, Chris, and I don't know if Andrea feels the same way. I think ever since Sam told him his lineage, his head hasn't been right.
That's true. But I also would say that I don't think that it's affecting him the way that everyone thinks it's going to affect him. His issue isn't with Dany being his aunt. His issue is with the fact that he's been living a lie his whole entire life.
He's the heir of
Yeah.
the throne, yeah.
And
that he
so
doesn't want.
His whole entire life has been a lie. And so I don't think that he's nearly as bothered by the idea of being Dany's nephew as necessarily Dany is by the idea that she thought her whole entire life was she was by herself, and just to find out that she's finally come so close to everything that she's been working hard for, just to find out that not only has she not been alone her whole entire life, you know what I mean, but she was on the run while this person was raised with a family, you know what I mean? I think that's a lot to go through. I think that
Right.
it's going to be Dany struggling with it more, but not necessarily because Jon's her nephew, but just because it's a lot to take in for her, you know what I mean? But I think that Jon's handling it better than, to be expected, but he's kind of checked out of the game a little bit. But back to the books versus the show, I still think that it's going to be a battle in 3 parts. And there has to be some significance to the ice and fire. And Jon is ice and fire. He's not
Has to be.
ice.
Has to be.
Yeah, well,
Jon-
yeah, because
Jon-
he's half
Jon-
Stark,
yeah,
half
Jon-
Targaryen.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, as a Targaryen is a Targaryen is a Targaryen. If your father's a Targaryen and you're born, you're Targaryen. If you're a female and your mother gives birth to you and you're of the Baratheon line, you're a stag, right? So
Right.
we have the situation that you have to consider. Jon is a dragon. You know what I mean? But the biggest thing here is that he is an ice dragon. He's ice and fire. Where Daenerys is all fire, she's fire dragon. So now you have ice. I mean, you have fire, you have ice and fire, and now you need ice, right? And some part of me has always considered Arya the third head of the dragon, whether she rides a dragon or not. I'm not saying that she will. I haven't figured it out in my head unless they really go full-fledged with this Sarah Snow and Jacaerys Valerian arc, and they find a way to incorporate Targaryen blood into the Stark line from back with the Dance of Dragons. I mean, who knows? It's a possibility. It's all a possibility. I mean, George R. R. Martin wrote it into Fire and Blood for a specific reason. But I think that there's something specifically special about Ned Stark's children and Lyanna Stark's child that has woken the magic in their line specifically. So what is open to their bloodline now wouldn't have necessarily been open to them a generation before. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was something about Rickard Stark's children and their offspring that woke the magic in Stark's blood. So, I mean, it's quite possible that whatever was accomplished last episode is a part of the fact that magic had been reawoken in their line. But it's also completely possible that has nothing to do with any of that. But I can't explain the prince that was promised Azor Ahai link to Arya killing the Night King, because in all honesty, I'm still thinking that those prophecies have absolutely nothing to do with the Long Night.
That's a good point. And that's, if those prophecies are to come to pass, at this point, it has to not be connected, right?
Right. So Azor Ahai was 8 to 10,000 years ago with the first Long Night, right? Valyria wasn't created for 5,000 years after the Long Night was ended, right?
Right.
The prince that was promised is a Valyrian prophecy. It came from Valyria. It has nothing to do with Azor Ahai. Absolutely nothing to do with Azor Ahai. So what are the chances that the prince that was promised has absolutely nothing to do with the Long Night and has everything to do with returning the dragons to Valyria? Who fucking knows? I mean, anything's a possibility at this part, or restoring them to glory, you know what I mean? Or bringing dragons back into the world. I mean, sky's the limit when it comes to interpreting these prophecies. But one thing's for sure is that somewhere along the line, somebody decided to blend the prince that was promised and Azor Ahai together to make them into one prophecy, which is making it really fucking confusing for everyone. And one of them might not have anything to do with anything. And for the record, it's still quite possible that Lyanna was Nisa Nisa and Rhaegar was fucking Azor Ahai.
Yeah, that could be too. Do you want to let me read a comment here on the YouTube. Joy, do you have stuff on Facebook?
I have one. It comes from Andrea Triggs. What is Wheel Creeper's purpose with the Night King now gone?
I love how that's sticking. Can she have a gold star?
She can have Andrea Triggs. You get a gold star.
She's hilarious. He's the world. He's the memory of the world. I think that's pretty self-evident at this point. The Maesters, they write history down, and it's bias to the story that they want to tell. Where Bran is the living memory of the entire world. So his job is to record the history moving forward. And
he's like a rolling GoPro.
I'm going to be honest with you. He's either going to end up in the crypts of Winterfell, somehow attached to the Weirwood tree, or he's going to end up on the Isle of Faces. That's probably either way it goes. I mean, Bran is the living memory of the earth at this point. I mean, that's his purpose at this point. I mean, and so he's going to sit under a tree like Bloodraven, and he's probably going to wait for the next Green Seer to record living history. You know what I mean? If that was what the Night King's purpose was, to end the long night, I mean, to erase the memory of the world, if that was his number one purpose, then obviously keeping Bran alive is detrimental at this point. You know what I mean?
Eric Sullivan says he's the backup hard drive.
That's awesome. I got two comments here. I just want to say that when we were at Ice and FireCon watching episode 3, we played a drinking game, and if you saw Bran with his creepy face, you had to take a drink. Xavier Jack says, I think Tyrion told fake Aegon something like that. He's been living on a pole boat safely all his life while she lived on the streets of the free cities. Now you want a dragon and have a better claim. James Wilcox and John 316 both say Isle of Faces, so I guess they're agreeing with you on that, which would make sense, at least to me, from a book standpoint.
Yeah, Tyrion said to fake Egan, he said, I know she's strong. How could she not be? I know that she walked into a fire and she hatched 3 dragons. I know that she was sold to Dothraki. I mean, yeah, Tyrion says that was probably one of my favorite things that he said in a Dance of Dragons in regards to Daenerys, when he convinced Egan to not go to Meereen, instead to go to Westeros on his own. So yeah, convincing. He's really clever, that guy. Speaking of Tyrion, this is a really fun episode for me.
Right.
I love that scene, by the way.
Oh my god, it was everything.
With him and Sansa, I love that scene.
I thought so too. I want them together.
It was everything to me. It was everything to me. So what I liked about it is that nothing that they said was past tense. She didn't say it would have never worked. She goes, it won't ever work.
I'm going to answer a question for Ashley Jordan, asking, are all Targaryens immune to dragonfire? And I'm going to say no. Because if you remember Dany's brother...
Viserys?
No, wait. He was melted with lava.
Yeah, but it was
melted gold, but still the heat shouldn't have been able to cook his brain, basically. And that's basically what happened. It cooked him.
Well, remember she said that meant he wasn't real Targaryen.
Right. Well, no,
whatever the hell that meant.
No, actually, that's not what he said. She said, fire cannot kill a dragon. He's no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon. Oh, that's right.
He wasn't. Yeah, so he's not a dragon.
I think that there's a difference between having the blood of the dragon and actually being a dragon. So being a dragon, I think, means that you can hatch dragons, that you can bond dragons, and that you have a high tolerance to different temperatures, and you don't get sick as often. There's certain things that Daenerys explains in the books that she doesn't like get common colds. Her body basically burns at a higher temperature. She has her dragon dreams, things like that. So these are traits of being a dragon,
Or gift. It's like a gift, right? It's
Right.
not every
Right.
Targaryen.
and you can have the blood of the dragon and ride a dragon and not be a dragon, if that makes sense.
Biggie says the Lord of Light is a Stark supporter. James Wilcox says melted gold.
Yeah, I said lava. Sorry, guys. I meant gold. I don't know where the hell lava
It
came
makes
from.
sense. I understand what you're saying.
Tyrion will mount Brienne before it's over. I don't see that.
Wait, Jamie or
No, actually, listen, I'm still shipping, and I know Kelly hates that. I'm sorry, Kelly, if you're listening. I am still shipping Jamie and Brienne. Okay, they somehow survived. Fucking A. I don't know how that even happened, but they
That was
survived.
incredible. Like every time you turn around, and it was hard to see a lot of the details in the episode after that initial anticipation, that initial horror anticipation, which we get later on with Arya in the library, or when she's trying to snip around and hide. It was so fast. Like you see Brienne, and she looks like she's shit out of luck. Then Jamie rescues her, and then she rescues Jamie, and then Pod's rescued, and Pod's surviving, and it was like, holy shit, like so many times where you thought your favorite character was going to die and they didn't.
they were so in sync.
Right?
Yeah, they
Oh,
were.
it was so good. And fighting back to back was
It
absolutely
was awesome.
It was.
Yeah.
They were very in sync with each other. It was beautiful.
Imagine how they'll be in bed.
I'm actually still hoping for some Tormund Brienne action.
No,
I
after-
know.
Listen, after the Giant's milk, she is not getting anywhere
That's
near
funny.
that guy.
Catherine says,
This is what
ship
he just needs
anyone
to steal her.
with Brian.
He just needs to steal that big old woman and put her over his shoulder.
No way, man. After that Giant's milk thing, she just looked at him like,
I'm just glad he lived.
He was so
not
attractive.
happening.
He was so
Can you-
attractive in that moment.
Can you believe how many people actually lived in this episode? Like with as bad as the deck was stacked, when the army of the dead rolled through the Unsullied, even though the Unsullied held their ground like bosses, the undead rolled through them like a wave of bodies, almost like World War Z. And I mentioned that in the episode last night too. It's amazing how many people actually survived.
I don't know how the hell Sam survived.
No, Sam is dope. I mean, did you guys not see his style? He was
Right?
okay.
Yeah, he ran away. I remember that part, Andrea. He ran away
No,
crying.
This is her bullet point. Go
I've
ahead.
completely dubbed it. It's called the Lay and Slay.
That's awesome.
He was legit like, fuck it, they're gonna come for me anyways. I'm just gonna stay where I'm at, and I'm just gonna slay everyone, just randomly, just reach over and just start slaying. And it was so clever because he didn't have to worry about getting trampled on because everyone was falling on him. So just slay him, kill him, throw him to the side, build a mountain.
That's valid. Yeah.
I mean, even John like stopped and looked back at him like, do I help this? I guess not. He's just slaying everybody. I mean, come on, give Sam some credit. He legit was like laying and slaying everyone. I mean, come on, he's a goat. I love Sam. I fucking love Sam.
James Wilcox says, I guess that would leave John. Laugh out loud. Never said anything about John having warm skin. Jonathan Stomas Starklever says, is the Unsullied a little overrated? I don't know what you mean by that. I don't think so.
Their formation was so Loctite. It was so dope.
Yeah, it was locked. Yeah, they were closing ranks and trying to keep the dead back while the retreat was happening.
While they were retreating, yeah.
You got to give them some credit there. They didn't flinch. They did their duty. I can't believe Grey Worm survived. And real quick, there was a scene where Davos is flaring in the air like, "Come on, Danny, we need the fire lit." And I thought that Grey Worm was actually going to grab a torch and like run like dun 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 and run to the pit and light on fire. Didn't happen, and I thought that's where Grey Worm was going to die. Then here comes Melisandre out like a boss.
Yeah, but I love their formation to protect her.
Oh yeah, that was cool too.
That was really impressive, and that was a big deal because at that moment, not only are they closing ranks to keep the dead at bay as best they can, they have formation so that she can walk to the pit and stand there for seem like forever, and I'm just like, light the fucking thing,
Well,
Melisandre, light it.
James says the Unsullied did what they do, performed their job flawlessly. Everyone else's plans went to shit.
They did.
True.
I mean, it's really sad.
True.
You had to sit back and you had to watch them literally just sacrifice themselves so everyone could clear the battlefield, and everyone was just kind of hanging out in the back of the battlefield anyways. I mean, but so there's this book that I read a long time ago. It's by an author named Stephen Pressfield. It's called Gates of Fire. And if you guys are fans of anything that's related to the Battle of Thermopylae, Xerxes 300, anything like that, Sparta, it's an amazing book to read. And he does a lot of different things. But there's this term in there. It's called tree fucking. And it sounds funny, but it's basically like this stage in the Agoge when, you know, sons are taken from their homes and they're basically trot out to be warriors. And so basically they're, you know, set up in their phalanx line and they're locked tight and they're basically pushing with everything they have to try to uproot an actual fucking tree.
Oh, wow.
With soldiers at their back. I mean, completely. It's like it's their way of making sure that their phalanx stays strong. And so
It's awesome. That's cool.
So I assumed that with the Unsullied that this was basically what they were going to try to emulate. And so the only thing that I have to say that I found a little disappointing was when they set up their phalanx and they locked in there with their spears and whatnot, there were still spaces that were in between their shields, and they should have been covering each other from shoulder to thigh, and they weren't. And so there were gaps in between. And so when those whites came in and they rushed the Unsullied lines, they literally just saw this avalanche of whites just like come right over their top of them and just kind of land right on top, and then they're just getting slaughtered left and right. But in the way that it's actually shown it's described in the books, it's, you know, they're guarding the person that next to them on their left from their elbow, from their shoulder to their thigh. And there's another set of shields that actually come above and block, you know, their heads or whatever. And then there are obviously holes that they set their, you know, their short swords and their spears through. But I was hoping that they were going to do a better job as far as that. It's called Gates of Fire. It's phenomenal. But I was really hoping that.
What was the book called again?
Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield.
All right, Gates of Fire. I'm going to write it in the chat so they can have it. It's
phenomenal. I mean, it's a really gruesome book, but if you like Greek history, things like that, he's a phenomenal author. But yeah, I felt really bad watching, you know, the Unsullied basically just sacrifice themselves for everyone to kind of get inside the castle, and then it still wasn't enough. And then watching, you know, Grey Worm having to pull the cord to collapse the bridge. I was really emotional for me because here you have a person who's basically had every single emotion in him trained out of him, you know, no fear, no love, no mercy, no emotions whatsoever. And you could see him struggling with having to make the decision to sacrifice his men that he's, you know, basically grown up and trained and commanded, you know, for however many years. You know, it was really hard for me. But I want to tell you that fucking Grey Worm is the real MVP with a fucking spear, dude. Bruh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oberyn doesn't stand a chance against bruh.
Him going, and you know who else is awesome with a spear? Arya.
Yeah, she was dope.
Wow, Davos is like when she got done kicking all their asses, and Davos is like looking at her. I'm like, that's funny.
How did Davos live with his non-fucking sword fighting ass?
Right.
I just so there were things in there that I was just like, okay, how did this actually happen? You know, and I was completely shocked by the amount of main characters that we had survive this, but that just means that there's going to be way more that fucking hit the toast in episode 5. But I have a success rate for specific houses that showed up. So obviously we know that House Stark had a 100% success rate in the Battle for the Dawn. Every single member of House Stark lived. House Targaryen, every single member of House Targaryen lived, except for Viserion. He died a second time. 100% success rate for House Lannister. Both Jaime and Tyrion lived.
Right.
Whoever came from the Stormlands, there was 100% success rate for them. Davos, Seaworth, Brienne of Tarth. So 100% success rate there. And then you have House Tarly, obviously 100% success rate because Sam lived, but Sam is also a member of the Night's Watch. Now, in the books, it says as long as there's one man who's still one brother of the Watch who still survives, that basically there's hope for the Seven Kingdoms. And technically, Jon Snow isn't a brother of the Watch anymore, even though he still does his duties for the Watch by trying to protect the realms of men. But Sam, we knew was going to live no matter what, so that was our guarantee. Kind of foreshadowing that we were going to have a little bit of success with the Long Night. But RIP to the Brotherhood Without Banners, completely gone now with the loss of Beric. We lost, so 50% of the Night's Watch basically was torn down because all we had was Edison, Tollett, and Sam. Poor guy. House Mormont, I was not expecting a double death in that. I was expecting Jorah to go, and I think that everyone was expecting it to be either Lyanna or Jorah because of the fact that she was so well received when they introduced her character that we just, okay, well, they can't keep her around very long. What was interesting was Dave and Dan had admitted that they only expected to have her on for literally one scene, and she she did so well in her reading that they were like, how do we not, use her for more scenes?
She was amazing.
Yeah,
to me,
Bella
she was
Ramsey was phenomenal.
in this episode. She was the fucking hero, in my opinion. What she did was absolutely fucking fantastic.
Lyanna Stark. I'm sorry.
Lyanna Mormont. Yeah,
Little
I
Bear.
listen.
Wow.
Little
That was hard to
Bear, big little, just fucking fuck you, giant. I don't care. You're crushing me. Fuck you. Like that's the
That was hard to
ultimate.
watch.
It was hard to watch, but it was the ultimate hero move.
So
for her.
it was totally a parallel to Tormund's story, though. You guys saw that, right?
Yeah.
It was she slayed a giant, and then she basically laid down and she slept with it after the fact. She permanent sleep. But I don't know. Were you ever part of the rumor mill that they thought that Tormund possibly was little Lyanna's father?
I've heard about it, but I've never been a part of that
Because
one.
Mage Mormont actually never took a husband or something to that effect, and so no one actually knows who Lyanna Mormont's father is. And Bear Island is specifically known for fighting off wildling raids and Ironborn raids, and all of their women learn how to fight early on to protect their island when their men are gone, etc. Right? Well, Tormund is known for going across the wall hundreds of times or whatever and raiding, and so the idea is that Mage is actually his Sheila. And so Tormund's actually little Lyanna's father, but obviously we can't verify that in this show, but it was a really nice little parallel between them, with her slaying the giant, and then her big old roar, and then the here we stand at the very last moment. Like she got knocked the fuck out of the way. I didn't think she was getting back up after that first hit. I didn't either. That was a club. It was his hand, but damn.
And that was 1-1, right?
No, it wasn't 1-1.
Because he only had the one eye, right?
But it doesn't matter because
people were speculating about that last night. But also, Andrea, there was a question we got last night. We were going to wait to ask you today.
Okay.
Is that it for the Mormont line? There is no other, right?
Okay,
Before you answer that, let me say this. Ashley says, isn't there something about Lyanna and Jorah saying something like "good luck in the battle"? The specific phrase they say is important? ?
I don't remember exactly what they said, but I think they said "here we stand," which is their house words, which is good because it shows acceptance for Lyanna of Jorah, who's basically been gone for so long. Speaking of Jorah, really quick, there was a lot of symbology between the end of second episode and Jorah and Lyanna in the third episode, and also with Jorah carrying Heartsbane, and that all comes back to Jeor Mormont too. And when he was killed at Craster's Keep, he made Sam promise that he would find a son and he would bring him back to the north, and he would tell him that it was his wish for Jorah to protect the realms. And so when Sam gave him Heartsbane, it was,
hell of a nod.
It was like a flashback to, you won't die out here, Tarly. When he was on the Fist of the First Men and they were trying to make their way back to the wall, he forbid Sam to die and basically made Rast stay with him while they were trekking back to the Craster's Keep, charging him if Sam dies, you die, basically, right? So in that moment, Sam felt like Jeor saved his life. And so then when Jeor is dying, he promises, he makes Sam... promise him, he extracts his promise out of him with his last breath, that you'll get my son, you'll bring him back, you'll have him join the Night's Watch and reclaim the honor of our house, right? And so
there could be history there, Ashley. There could be. And when you're done, remind me, I want to tell you something that Biggie said I thought it kind of ties really nicely into this conversation.
Okay. And so, yeah, and then so last season you have Sam, he sees Jorah at the Citadel and he's like, no one's going to save you, but you're not going to die today. Your father saved me, right? And so then you have this full circle thing where he gives Sam, Heartsbane. Where he gives Jorah Heartsbane, and you have Dany who's like, I'm going to give you, I don't have a Valyrian sword to give you, but I promise I'll forge one for you that like none in the world has ever seen. But he never gets that sword. But you have Sam who saves Jorah's life just to turn around and give Jorah his father's, ancestral sword. Basically,
the same sword that saves Dany, even though Dany roasted
his parents. Right. His brother. It's his kin. And it was a really beautiful thing for me. And so I was literally in tears when that whole thing, because all I'm seeing is, book, show, parallel. When I watch the show, I'm always trying to find a way to incorporate the actual dialogue that's happening on the show, but also the visual storytelling that doesn't have any dialogue, so I can figure out how it incorporates into the books too, because they are doing it, whether they've moved away from it or not. They're the things that they're not explaining verbally, they're showing us visually. And so I think it's really important for us to pay attention to these little clues. And so that was one of the things that really touched my heart, was the Sam and Jorah moment, going full circle back to the Jeor Mormont, and Jorah basically reclaiming the honor of his house by fighting for the Battle of the Dawn and losing his life. And it was beautiful for Jorah because there was no other way that he would have wanted to die other than fighting and losing his life for Dany. And that was literally what was left for him. So it was beautiful.
That was a pretty amazing. Well, I want to say amazing. That was a pretty touching scene, and I even teared up at that moment. But also, we learned, and I mentioned this last night, that dragons are like big kitties. And when Drogon comes down, and
that was like amazing.
Dany is just losing her shit over Jorah, her protector. And I actually enjoyed that scene. Well, enjoy is maybe not the right word. I appreciate that scene where Dany picks up a sword and she's trying to fight next to Jorah, and she is not a warrior, but she's doing her very best to protect herself and try to help Jorah.
Yo, I gave mad props for that.
And to help her help Jorah protect her. They're kind of helping each other. And then when he dies, and then Drogon comes down and kind of dragon hugs them, I thought that was another very touching scene.
Considering he wouldn't get anywhere near Jorah before, he the fact that he embraced him and his mother at the same time, I thought that was beautiful. I mean, there was a bunch of little touching scenes that were in there. Another one that really pulled my heartstrings was, I've been a really big fan of this Sandor Clegane Arya relationship since the very beginning. And it was always, that Sandor was really self-serving, and he was a killer, and this is the cruel world, and just accept it, you know what I mean, kind of situation. And then in his very last season with her, before she ran off to the Vale, I think it was season 4, you finally started realizing that the Hound was more than just trying to sell her. He was her champion. And I loved the Hound. And it was that moment that he stood up from, that he came out from that rock, and he's taking a piss, and Brienne's standing there, and he's like, you're not fucking taking her anywhere. Basically, you could see in him, and he's like, get behind me, Arya. Even without the dialogue, he's like trying to protect her and save her. And to me, like, oh my God, he's going to take her home. He's her champion. He's going to keep her safe. And then boom, Brienne and him get in that fight, and he falls off the cliff, and then he almost gets dead.
Like, stop shitting. She's like, you can shit later. That was an awesome scene for sure.
Yeah, but so then coming back and forth, there's this argument that the Hound and Sansa are actually like the better, relationship. And when I say relationship, I don't mean like couple relationship. I just mean a relationship in general between two characters. I just can't agree. I think that the Hound has a stronger bond for Arya than he does for Sansa at this point. Sure, Sansa is great. She was pretty. You wanted to fuck her, kiss her. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, and even Sansa has the dreams about the Hound. But the one thing that stood out to me in this episode, in season 3, or episode 3, I keep saying the wrong thing, is when the Hound is like losing his fucking mind, and they think we can't win. And Beric Dondarrion's like, Clegane, we need you. Get off your ass. We need you.
We're gonna die.
And then, and he's like, oh fuck it, we're gonna die. It ain't worth it. And then
tell her that.
Beric says, tell her that. And there she is on the roof, being a fucking ninja again.
And he takes off.
And then Clegane gets up, and I think it says a lot about that guy as a character, where he puts on this front as he's a real motherfucker and a real piece of shit. But when push comes to shove, he's kind of like Jon in a sense that well, maybe not quite, but he does what he think is right. He has a code, I guess. I
don't know if it was a code. I think he and Arya share a very special bond.
I don't think he would have done that for just anybody.
No, he wouldn't have done that.
He wouldn't have.
But Arya, it's like he babysat her. He was almost like I don't want to say a mentor, but they had some kind of.
She's the closest thing that he'll ever have to having his own child.
His own child, perfect.
Yeah, he's her champion. He stood in the throne room and watched her father basically be falsely imprisoned. He did nothing when her father lost his head, and then he was put in a situation where he was forced to rescue this girl from being murdered at the Twins, while her mother and her brother are being murdered, and then her aunt is murdered, and her sister is freaking locked in King's Landing, and she doesn't know where she's going. She has nobody, and somewhere along the line, she ends up teaching him so much more than he thought that he needs to know. Yeah, I mean, he had all of these skills, how to be a killer, but he didn't know how to feel. and Arya
Yeah.
was full of nothing but feelings, full of nothing but hate, and somehow they affected each other. And so I think that for me, watching that moment where Barrick's like, tell her that, and watching him, it realized on him that she still hasn't given up, and that's his little killer that he fucking raised and he fucking nurtured and he fucking made as cold as he fucking possibly could. And goddamn it, she's not going to show him up. And for me, I was like, that's perfect. And so, yeah, I'm really glad that the relationship with Sandor and Arya was more of the focus than Sandor and Sansa, because I really, really love the Tyrion Sansa focus versus the Sandor Sansa focus.
Biggie says the Hound was a mentor to Arya. He showed her where the heart is, and she used that knowledge and stabbed the Night King in the heart.
So, well, I
Was
think
it more like
didn't she stab him in the gut?
No,
Yeah,
it was
looked like
chest
Oh, was
cavity.
it? Okay, fair enough.
Well, Gisela says the Hound believes if he saves every little girl, it's like saving his sister.
That is very true. That is very true. He has a soft spot
Oh,
for
I
girls,
totally-
for little girls.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Was there any other bullet points that you really wanted to touch on? Because I know you had a lot of stuff. I know some of them we covered.
Sorry, Andrew. We've been all over the place, haven't we?
No, it's good stuff.
Is that what Andrew was asking? Why we're all over the place?
No, I was just saying that to her because she's
Oh.
the one who wrote the bullet points.
I thought you were talking about a comment. The
No.
Night King has free thought and feelings. He planned everything and anticipated everyone who was someone, but not no one. That
Right.
is an excellent line, Andrea. That was really well written. That is so true.
And-
he had it won until the end. He had it fucking won.
He did absolutely. Everything was completely. So Jon and everyone, they went into this battle and they thought, okay, we've planned as much as we possibly can. Bran's like, he's coming for me. So Jon's like, okay, cool, we're gonna go hide and we're gonna draw him out, etc. But the Night King had anticipated all of this. He knew that they were gonna try to draw him out. He also knew from being beyond the wall, listening to Beric Dondarrion and Jon's conversation, or having an idea of what their conversation was, that they understood that if they killed the generals, that the others would fall. And so what did he do? He sent his meat shields out first and he kept his generals back. So you have all of these players. He knew that Jon went to Dragonstone and got all this dragon glass. He knew that he prepared his army. He knew that they had 2 dragons. He knew all of these things. So what did he do? He used Jon. He used everything that he knew about Jon. And while Jon was trying to do the same thing about him, but Jon couldn't control Dany's reaction. So at the end of the day, I think the Night King played on that weakness too, knowing that it was going to be Jon preparing, and he needed to just find one fucking way to set their whole fucking plan off. So then they start burning whites, and then all of a sudden, Jon's flying and he sees all the whites, all the White Walkers, and everybody with a Valyrian steel sword, everyone with dragon glass is still all the way back on the other side of the battlefield, right?
Yep.
All of your main characters with Valyrian steel, nobody except for Jorah, got that far into the field. And what happened? The White Walkers just stayed right where they were.
Yep.
And so you have Jon, and he sees them, and what does he do? That's his first move: take out the White Walkers. Right? Who knew that was going to happen? The Night King. He fucking knew that was going to happen.
Yep. And here
Yeah.
comes the storm.
So then
he baited him.
Here comes that.
He definitely baited him.
Exactly. Here comes that storm. Lose your visibility. Now you don't know if you're firing on your own people, if you're firing on my people. Right?
Oh yeah, that blizzard fucked me up. I'm like, I was like, the dragons can't see. Like that was the thing that worried me the most, Andrea. I don't know if it worried you.
The visibility was terrible.
They were in they were in that blizzard. They were having such a hard time, flying and everything. And then all of a sudden, Jon goes ham and then kind of goes low and like it starts hitting trees. And I'm thinking, oh fuck! But then left Dany alone. Like Dany was all alone with no backup, and I'm going, oh, this is not good, because that's I thought exactly what the Night King wanted, to try to separate them.
Yeah, he did. He was trying to draw them out because he was trying to get Jon away from Dany. That's what I'm telling you. When he engaged them, he went straight for Dany. He literally just zoomed right past Jon and went straight for Dany. He was trying to keep them separate. And what was interesting was, I think my favorite thing about that whole entire sequence with the Night King and Dany and Jon was the moment that Rhaegal had grabbed onto Viserion. And you could see he was working him for everything he had. And then we didn't know where Drogon was, but all of a sudden Drogon's big ass came out of nowhere and just snapped around his neck, and you knew it was done. And then the Night King was falling.
Well,
like,
Rhaegal's pretty hurt, right?
No, I don't think Rhaegal's hurt. So it looked like it was
because didn't he get scratched in the stomach area?
He did. His whole entire closet.
It was hard to see some of that too.
And I do think that there was actual damage done, if memory serves me correctly. But when he landed, it was because the way that they had all disengaged each other, he had nowhere to go but down. And so when he landed, he
Okay.
landed on his feet, but he was going at such a fast momentum that John
That it
literally
kinda
just
pushed him
tumbled right
forward.
off. Yeah. And so
Okay, yeah.
so then he fell straight down on his stomach and slid forward, but we didn't have any loss of dragons in that. And my nieces and everyone, they're freaking out right now because they're like, wait, hold on, but is Regal alive? But where's Ghost? And I keep saying, listen,
I don't know.
if he didn't die on
I don't
screen,
think Ghost made it.
if
I thought he was in the preview.
if he didn't die on screen, he's not dead. Ghost went to the
Well,
Riverlands.
evidently, there is somebody that said that Ghost was in one of the previews. I did not see him, but if somebody screenshots it or whatever.
I haven't had a chance to look, so I'm sorry.
Jorah Mormont made his way back across the field. I don't see why Ghost.
Yeah, how could Jorah make it back and not Ghost?
Well, how the fuck did? But that's
Well,
another
no,
thing that I
there
need
were
to know.
also
How the
Dothraki-
fuck did Jorah do it?
Well, there were
episode
but-
Biggie says Ghost in the episode 4 preview.
Okay, well that's good.
Not to mention the fact that Dothraki screamers were on foot running back, and they made it back. So I mean,
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
Ghost
right.
is the size of a fucking horse. And if I'm being honest with you, I really think that he just used Jorah as a decoy and fucking jetted for the Riverlands to go get his bitch.
Do you think that I want to go back to that Dothraki scene real quick now that it's fresh on my mind, and I have a question for John because if I don't answer, he's going to bug me all night. When the Dothraki ran into the dead, did you guys feel like it was just a mountain of corpses they ran into, and like the whites were just like piled up, and then they ran into like a big wall of dead bodies because the Night King was very good at using those dead bodies like as shields, as like a river of murder.
He just didn't care, dude.
Yeah, he didn't care. Yeah,
fuck. He's like, they're dead.
Well,
fuck.
what I didn't understand was, well, he didn't care about losing his foot soldiers because they're expendable, and he was just going to get more anyways. But yeah, I don't necessarily know if it was like a pile, but it was definitely a wall for sure of dead. I mean, when you finally got that first vision, when they crossed in from that light into that dark, zone, you definitely saw like a bunch of like faces, like just like everywhere from top to bottom. It definitely gave the opinion or the appearance of being kind of like a wall, or like a pile, but I think it was just like a brick fucking wall of like dead people just like cramped in as close as possible together.
Well, yeah, that would make sense,
Yeah.
because remember he put his hand up, and then all of a sudden they just started falling on the fire, and my mom's like, they're trying to douse the fire. I was like, no, they're building a fucking bridge.
Yeah.
Is what they're doing. They're falling down and
They're
sacrificing
sacrificing
themselves to build this fucking bridge.
He was like a puppet master.
Yeah, literally, that's what he was. He was a fucking puppet master.
But go ahead.
He was definitely a puppet master in that situation, and he was definitely sacrificing them. What I didn't understand was that we had Unsullied that were on the other side of the trench, and what I didn't get was why we didn't have them fucking lighting bitches up when they were trying to do that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously there's no right answer for it all, but there were so many moments in the battle that I thought were going to be amazing, and then there were so many moments in the battle that I thought, really, this is what we're getting?
It was so up and down. I mean, like that whole scene in the beginning, like right in the beginning, you're like, okay, what the fuck's going to happen? My chest is beating out of my heart's beating out of my chest. And then it was Melisandre shows up, and it's like, yeah. And then they run out and do battle, and they're all fucking pretty much dead.
Well, then I'm like, where the fuck are her priestess?
Well, we'll get into that, I'm sure. But John has a question, Andrea. Is the most northern houses wiped out? House Mormont, House Umber, House Bolton, House Karstark, and most likely House Glover all gone.
Well, we don't know anything. We don't know anything about House Glover. All we know is that they didn't show.
It didn't show up. Yeah.
We don't know if
the other question he had was, how much of the forces do you think are left in the north?
So, if my memory serves me correctly, Dave and Dan said that the Dothraki are done. That was 75,000 mounted knights or mounted soldiers.
That's a big blow.
75 to 80,000 mounted soldiers in one fell swoop, basically. I mean, I would say it was probably, I wrote 80,000 in my notes, and then I went down to like 75,000 probably dead, because I saw a bunch come back over the line. But then to remember that Winterfell basically got sacked, and you saw Sansa down in the crypts, and then you heard all of the screaming, and then all of a sudden it got really quiet, which means a lot of people died in the yard too. So we can just assume that 75,000 at least Dothraki are dead. We know that we lost a good portion of the Unsullied, and I don't know how many Northmen that leaves, but there obviously are survivors in the yard. I just don't know who. My biggest thing here, though, is that I think that Melisandre at the end was a sacrifice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, and some people were complaining about that. Let's talk about the end real quick. Some people were complaining that it was like kind of dumb. It was like kind of quick, and I thought it was fitting for her character to kind of go out that way. You know, she's tired. You know, her deed is done, and R'hllor basically said, "Your shit is over." You know, and the way I thought the way they wrote it was kind of, I liked it. I felt it was true to her, to the character. But there was a lot of people that said they did not like that, and they thought it was a quick ending that for her that should have been. It was kind of lame.
But I think it almost meant, I don't know if Andrea agrees with me on this, but it feels like she went back over to Essos. I forget. She was supposed to bring Priestess, but she didn't.
But we don't know that she was supposed to. We just know she was going back to Essos.
Right. And we also don't know if they actually did come and they were kept at bay so that they didn't lose more forces. That could be something too. However, I think it was fitting for Melisandre to go out like that because she had basically served her purpose. She had done everything she had to do. She brought back Jon. Yeah. She did what she needed to do with lighting the Dothraki swords. She, like Chris, you said, she was the MVP because she lit their swords and then she lit the trench because, like you said yesterday,
you needed to do, put her back on her path.
Exactly. And exactly. She put Arya back in the right frame of mind. And like you said last night, Davos was trying to wave to Dany to light the trench, but Dany couldn't see because of the blizzard. So Melisandre goes out there, and I seriously thought she was going to have to sacrifice herself for that one because that was just not happening. And I'm like, oh my God, light the trench. But then taking off that necklace, which we knew was the thing because she did it in that one episode. We were like, what the fuck? Her taking off that necklace and dropping it was so significant and symbolic. And then just leaving, like, and Davos watching her, just kind of fade away. It really was like the full circle for Melisandre. It was great for her arc, I thought.
So I want to read a book quote really quick. It's Tyrion 5, A Dance with Dragons. Halden nodded. Benerro sent forth word from Volantis. Her coming is the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. From smoke and salt she was born to make the world anew. She is Azor Ahai returned, and her triumph over darkness will bring a summer that will never end. And death itself will bend its knee, and all those who die fighting in her cause shall be reborn. Benerro is the high priest for the Red Temple of Volantis.
Excellent.
And so this is something that Tyrion hears when he's in Volantis. And basically what he's saying is Daenerys is Azor Ahai reborn, and that those who fight with her against darkness will be reborn. And I don't want to say this is a magical cure and they'll go this way in the show, but in my opinion, that very last moment with Melisandre waiting until the night was over. I mean, what do you say to the god of death? Not today. So obviously she waited until the morning to kill herself, basically, right? Mm-hmm. But it felt more like okay, it's over, it's done with. Now I can make the final sacrifice. You know what I mean? And her sacrifice was for something. And as much as I love Davos, there's sometimes where I'm just like, you're really fucking narrow-minded, dude. Like, she brought Jon Snow back to life. Okay, she killed Shireen Baratheon, and of course the good doesn't outweigh the bad, and I don't think that should be an excuse for anyone necessarily. But at the same time, this woman knows you want to kill her, and she came anyways, and she lit a bunch of fucking swords on fire, and she just lit your fucking trench. Get your shit together, bro. I mean, he saw her walking out of Winterfell and was like, oh, no, you don't. You're not escaping me now. You know what I mean? All on her ass. And she's like, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, she did what she had to do. And, I mean, there are things that, Melisandre did that aren't, acceptable, that probably will never be acceptable. But then there are things about Melisandre that you have to look back at and say, sometimes you do a lot of really fucking shitty, terrible things in order to fucking do something really fucking right. And that's the greatest thing about the story, is that everything is done in shades of gray. Nothing is black or white. You know what I mean? Yeah. Including Bran being thrown out the window by Jaime Lannister, or Theon fucking taking over Winterfell and burning 2 farmers' boys, you know what I mean? And running Bran and Rickon from their home. Without all of these things that had happened, no one would have been where they were at this point. You see what I'm saying? And so you have to, at some point, understand that it is what it is. Things are going to happen as they're going to happen, whether it's destiny or prophecy or, fate, or it's just fucking happening. It's going to happen no matter what you try to do to change it. That's that's destiny for you. That's fate. Fate will happen whether you actively work at it or not.
Xavier says she saved all of you. I didn't see Davos fight anyone, but when you want to pick up your sword, it's against a woman. Come on, Davos.
I know. I was really irritated about that. I agree with you, Xavier.
Excellent points across the board. Anything on the Facebook?
So Andrea, you talked about the depletion of the forces, and that was something that I really was wondering about, because they are decimated. So Eric G asks this question: do you think Daario and the Second Sons come to help? And also somebody asked too, didn't Dany leave some forces at Dragonstone? So there's like a two-part question there, because they're about to march south to King's Landing against the Golden Company and the Lannister army. They got nothing left in the tank.
Can I bump in there for just a
go.
second?
Absolutely.
What if Daario Naharis comes back, right, with the Second Sons and elephants?
Dude, okay, you're gonna have to get over the elephants, dude.
Wouldn't that be funny if Cersei's looking out over the battlefield
and they have the fucking elephants?
They have elephants. Tell me that.
And dragons
and Asha.
Right?
God, that would pee in her cornflakes, wouldn't it?
Well, I can say that I know two dragons that would be really happy to have some supper, because those elephants are in dire need. So yeah, good.
They're hungry.
What is that? What does that make Daario, the housewife who makes sure he provides dinner for the children? I don't think they were getting Daario back, and if we do get him back, it'll be some shit with this Golden Company, if I'm being honest with you. But I don't necessarily know. I don't have any pictures of him showing up on scene. I have pictures of people who I have so far that we haven't seen yet are Jaqen H'ghar, the Waif, the Night King, who was there in Belfast at the very end. You have Patrick Dempsey, you have David Portman, you have Colin Hill. I mean, you have a bunch of different people who are going to show up in Belfast for the Dragon Pit scene, Tyrion Lannister, but you don't have anything with Emilia Clarke in those pictures where they were in Belfast getting ready to do the Dragon Pit last film in the Dragon Pit. There are certain things. You don't have Jon Snow show up there either, which is interesting. But supposedly that's where Tyrion's trial is supposed to take place. If that's actually really going to happen, it just depends on whether the CGI people were lying or not. I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Like we were talking about the Daario and the Second Son.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think we're getting Daario.
Is there anybody left at Dragonstone? Did Dany leave a?
Did she leave a small force at Dragonstone?
No, I think it would have been silly for Dany to leave a force on Dragonstone. I mean, the whole entire point of her going to seek a truce with Cersei was so that she could leave and without having to leave any of her troops behind. If she left anything behind at Dragonstone, it was more likely like women and children, people who didn't fight, things like that, people she wanted to keep safe. And I do think that we're going to see Dragonstone in the next episode. I'm pretty sure I saw it in one of our previews.
They gotta go look their wounds somewhere.
So yeah, Winterfell's not destroyed completely, though it's not secure either. When Viserion came through, he knocked out that whole entire wall. So there's definitely,
they're vulnerable.
Yeah, there's a breach open. So I mean, if they leave, and what I saw, like I said in the preview, is that Sansa's watching Jon and Dany fly off from the battlements. And I'm thinking is this wall isn't secure, and Jon and Dany are flying away, and Sansa's gonna get fucking kidnapped. So
now, Andrea, do you think the Golden Company will turn on Cersei?
I think it's a possibility. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's absolutely a possibility, but it wouldn't surprise me if they get annihilated 100%. They're sellswords. I mean, even if they do switch up, they're still not trustworthy, and so Jon and Dany couldn't have them in the Seven Kingdoms anyways, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, that does.
I typed in the wrong place.
I don't really know.
I need to get a rating. We need to get a rating from you, Andrea, too, before we run out of time. We have about 20 minutes left before we're done, so make sure we have enough time to get your sword rating in for this episode.
Okay. So the last thing that I don't think we've talked about is the crypts. And this was a big thing for me because I've been raving about what's going to happen with the crypts for how many seasons now, Chris? 3?
Oh, so for a long time. Oh, and remember, it's safe.
Yeah, it's the safest place. It's the safest place. I'm like, yeah, sure, with thousands and thousands of dead Starks down there. Let's just Can
Yeah,
go down there and hang out with
but
the fucking dead.
listen, I will say this, and please understand that I do this not because I want to, but John Starklover was right. Where else would they have gone? They weren't going to be able to get
On a boat
very far away.
south.
I don't think it was a dumb idea necessarily to go into the crypts.
Away.
Well, right, exactly. Away. I don't think necessarily it was a dumb idea to go into the crypts. I mean, logistically, sure, but come on, Jon Snow, you really fucking know nothing. You really don't. I'm sure it was Jon.
He knows what to do with his tongue, though.
He does. Well, listen. So,
he even married the girl, so clearly he did something
what
right.
I don't understand is that John knows better. He saw the Night King raise the dead.
Exactly, and so was he expecting the? So
I think he thought it wasn't going to happen through the tombs. I really think he thought that.
If I'm being honest with you, I think this was a Dave and Dan thing. I don't think it's going to happen this way in the books. I think that the Horn of Winter is going to raise the Kings of Winter for the side of the living. There's no fucking way in hell Bran the Builder built a fucking billion level fucking tomb for all their fucking ancestors for when the next time the Long Night comes and they can have a fucking ready army for the Night King. Unless they're fucking, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, it doesn't make any sense to me, in my opinion. And you had Sam, who's been dragging around this damn fucking horn for the last 8 seasons. Why the fuck didn't he blow it? So wasted opportunity.
Valid point.
Wasted opportunity. I think that Bran could have utilized that, and I think that it's quite possible, if I'm thinking in Jon Snow's mind, that, you know how I am a logical thinker and all that, Chris, I did the same thing earlier with you, that it was the fact that there was iron swords on their laps and they were expecting them to protect, basically keep the ghosts inside of their crypts. And so the question is, did all of the goddamn bones come out of their crypts, or did only certain ones that didn't have the actual longsword?
It looked like only certain ones came out.
Because I'm trying to figure out where Sansa and Tyrion found the safe place.
Yeah,
safe place
exactly.
To go and hide while everyone's being slaughtered on the outside.
Unless they were hiding behind Ned's, which we knew Ned was disintegrating, basically.
Well, no,
Ned
had all of his bones, but we don't have cats, and we didn't have we don't have Rickards either.
That's true. We don't.
There's a theory about this, which is that if there was no sinew left, like there has to be some form of sinew. There's magic. We all know there's magic in the show, but you don't have the magic that would make like a full skeleton come up without sinew and tendons. And it does take a long time for the human body to fully desiccate. So maybe it was just the theory that I was reading is that maybe it was certain bodies that still had some kind of connecting, broken down tissue. Yeah. The magic could reanimate that, but not a full out skeleton.
But where did we get? But where did we get those Starks from then? Because they haven't had any dead Starks down there since Robert's Rebellion.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it was really funny to me seeing the whole entire thing take place. But this is us fans who are trying to make sense of a fictional story.
Listen, the magic of the Night King lifting dead people. I think we just have to go with the suspension of disbelief on that one. John says, go ahead, Chris.
John says again, name me a safer place to hide. Again, John.
Okay, John.
Yeah, it's not about it being a safe place or not being a safe place, but it's about having the common sense to know that if you're going to fucking hang out in the crypts, at least have the ability, or
the guy's gonna raise the dead,
or the foresight to go to one of the levels that don't actually have dead bodies in it yet.
I have an answer to this. I have the best answer ever. You fucking leave.
Or you just have a ton of fucking dragon glass down there so they weren't caught off guard instead of just having Sansa with one fucking dagger.
Stick it with a pointy end.
Since we're talking about the crypts, Ray on Facebook brought up a question, and I think Andrea is the only one who could really answer this. Does Varys have a sacrifice to make for the realm?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, Varys is going to die before this is all over. It's his sacrifice. So yes, definitely.
Mel said it. Mel said he's going to die there.
They both have to die in the continent. But I really, going back to the crypto really quick, John, it's not about where the best place possible was, but there are so many levels of the crypts that Brandon the Builder spent all of his time actually building Winterfell, actually building the crypts with the giants and the children of the First Men. I mean, the children of the forest. I mean, Winterfell was built in stages, but it was the crypts and the First Keep that were Brandon the Builder's primary focus. And they're so deep that there are still levels that haven't actually been touched. So if you're gonna fucking go and hang out in the crypt, at least have the goddamn sense to go and hang out where the fucking their bodies at. Just, let's just be let's just be, completely safe here. I mean, the idea that there was going to be some kind of drama in the crypts with the Night King coming who can raise the dead, I mean, it's something that everyone should have actually paid attention to, because it was a possibility. So I had a bad feeling about it the whole entire time. Watching, them sit down in the crypts, and just like, oh God, there's thousands of dead Starks down there. Oh my God, what are you gonna do when Brandon the Builder comes? What happens if Jon Stark from, back in the day, or Brandon the Bloody Blade, or one of these fucking mean Kings of Winter who aren't fucking nice people, who weren't honorable men, who we've been warned about, throughout the whole entire series, actually, comes stepping out of the crypts. I was just like, this is gonna be bad. But so my biggest question about this is, now that all of those unnamed Starks are hanging out on the ground, where do you put them after the fact? You just go. Do you put Baron Stark where Edric Stark was, and just say, "Hey, bud, I'm not sorry if you're actually Baron Stark, but
I say you just burn them and just fling them."
We have a few minutes. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm just going with it.
We have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure we get your sword rating. Of course, if you're new to the podcast, either live or later, if you're listening to it later, we rate it with swords. So it's 1 out of 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. So we're going to ask Andrea to give us her sword rating, why, or maybe your favorite scene, and if you want to give us a prediction for what you think is going to happen into the next episode. You have about 7 minutes.
Okay, so you said 1 through 10 swords?
Yeah.
This is new. I thought it was 5 swords. Okay.
It used to be.
We changed it to 10 this year. I don't know why.
I'm on the fence with this episode. I don't know if I'm a 5 or an 8 or a 10, because there were so many things that I wanted to see that I didn't see. Action sequences, one-on-one combat sequences that I wanted to see, the choreography with Jon and his blade. That was one of the things that we love so much about Jon, is his ability to sword fight, the way that he sword fights. But then there were other things that were fantastic for me as well. Watching Grey Worm fight, and then that moment with Theon and Brandon the Godswood, when he said, welcome, that you're home, and then he told him thank you, and revalidated that Tyrion, that Theon had, redeemed himself, which I fully agree with. He redeemed himself a long time ago after everything that he had went through with, Ramsay. It was just enough. So this very last moment with Theon was absolutely beautiful for me. So there are things that were really satisfying for me, and then there were certain things where I was just like, I'm not sure. So I'm kind of on the fence. I want to say 8.5 to be generous.
Okay, that's good. I gave it a 9. Julie, I don't remember what you gave it.
I was kind of teetering. I went with a 9 because I wasn't ready to give it a 10 fully, because I want to see the rest of and I want to see the battle at King's Landing. I'm waiting to see, but for me it was the best episode of Game of Thrones by far, but I'm still waiting whether or not I want to give it 10 yet.
If anybody watching live wants to give us your sword rating, now would be the time, because we're almost out of time live. Until we get our extension in time on the live stuff, we're kind of limited to 2 hours still. But we're working on that. Listen, so give us your sword rating in the live chat if you want it to be read during the show, if you didn't get a chance to do it last night. Andrea, do you want to give us your favorite scene?
My favorite scene, the Hound.
The Hound?
The Hound when he ran after Arya. That was everything.
How about a quick prediction for tomorrow? You have about a minute.
For next episode?
Yep.
Oh, God. Okay, I think that we're getting the boat baby reveal. I think Sansa's staying behind in Winterfell when Jon and Dany leave for Dragonstone. Oh God, Cersei's gonna do something.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. That's okay. Real quick, we have Robert, 9 out of 10. That's Robert Waltman. We have Robert C with an 8 out of 10. We have Sabby with a 7 out of 7 swords. We have Jonathan Stoma Starklever, 10 out of 10. And we have Xavier Jack saying it was the best TV I've ever seen compared to everyone else. Yes, I agree. Totally agree. 10 compared to other Game of Thrones 8 and 9. Yeah, I totally think that's awesome. Facebook, you got any ratings in Facebook?
Alyssa's got a 10 out of 10. Ray has a 9 out of 10. Andrea Triggs has a 10 out of 10. And I think that's all the sword ratings we got. Oh, no, sorry. Emily, my girl Emily, she's got a 9.5. Amazing episode. Just a few minor things I didn't love.
Okay,
Fair.
so that being said, I want to thank Julie and of course Andrea for being on the podcast. Thank you guys so much. Awesome episode.
Thanks.
I want to mention that what we're going to do next is on Thursday, May 2nd at about 8:30 Eastern time, and we'll have this on the Facebook as well. We're going to do another live show, which is pretty much going to be just about the audience. So you guys, pop into chat, and we're going to try to read as much as we can, and that'll be the focal point of the episode. I'm not sure who's going to be on the episode just yet, just so you know. Now, next week, we're going to watch the episode Sunday night. Monday night, we're going to record at about 8:30 Eastern time. We'll do our normal review then, and if we have time, maybe, Andrea, we can get you back on a Tuesday to do another more in-depth episode breakdown. And, of course, we're going to do all this again after the season is over. So if you guys miss it, don't worry. We're going to re-break down the entire season after the season is over. And then we're going to take a short break and then do some other stuff. So that's being said, and everyone listening to the sound of my voice, could you do me a huge favor? I try not to ask for too much from the audience because I know you guys are busy. But if you guys could go to iTunes, if you're using Apple or getting your podcast, or if you're using an iPhone, and give us the best rating you think we deserve. We have a 3.5 star right now, and I think we're better than that. I really do. And with as many people that are downloading the podcast, I can't believe that you guys aren't loving the show and you guys aren't sympathetic to how difficult it is to make these podcasts at this point. We're pretty much doing it 3 days a week. Not freaking easy. And we sacrifice a lot of times with our family and our personal time to do this show. So if you could go and let's turn that fucking star rating around. If you guys do it on Stitcher, then leave a rating on Stitcher. And if you don't have time to do that, just tell your friends that you love our podcast. And remember, you guys are the podcast. You guys are the BTIT community. Without you, there is no fucking show.
Truer
Without
words.
you, there is no community.
Truer words.
We're like a big family. We love you guys. So, Andre, thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again.
Oh my gosh.
Probably next Tuesday. 'Cause you're working, right? You're not going to be around Thursday.
I just want to say, you guys, I can't even tell you how awesome it was to be back again for this, and I'm super appreciative that Julie and you could make it tonight, and do
Every
this sometime
time
with
you're
me.
on, you blow my mind.
I was-
You mind fuck me every time.
I was just telling Chris earlier when he was telling me that you were going to be on the show tonight, that I was like, I love recording with you because it's like, you have an abrasive personality type like me, where the things that come out of our mouth don't necessarily sound pretty for everyone else, but we don't mean any harm by it. And you're like my tribe. And
girl, you and me are spirit animals.
I was like, I can handle Julie all day, every day. She's just, she's my tribe. I just have to embrace that brand of crazy. It's perfect. It works out.
Yeah, we do our very best, and we have a whole different group of people, different personalities, and it's hard to get us all on the same podcast at the same time. And I think we all bring stuff to the table.
Ooh, hold on.
So that's okay, no worries.
I'm
We're
sorry.
going to end the live stream here. I forgot to show Andre where the mute button was in the app, but this is new for her to use. So
she did great. She did fantastic, guys, didn't she?
We love you,
Absolutely.
Andrea.
I found the
And we
mute
love
button
you
just
guys.
now.
That's awesome. And we love you guys, our nerd army, our BTIT collective. Remember, facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne. Also, Club BTIT. Ask to join the group. We'll let you the fuck in. It is an awesome place to be. And Andrea goes live for us also on the Facebook right after the episode.
Sometimes.
Providing sometimes she tries when she can, but she's always very active. It's awesome. And of course, BehindTheIronThrone.tv. Everyone on Facebook, you guys are awesome as well. I'm sorry, BehindTheIronThrone.tv is YouTube. So awesome there. And you guys can also be at getvocal.com, where we're also live, and we're going to use that even more. Go ahead, Andre.
Somebody commented in the chat earlier that me and LML should make a video together, or a theory video together, and all you have to do is just tell him that and just let me know if he's down. And you guys just push that through, because I do adore me some LML. He's pretty awesome. So if you
I met him.
He's pretty dope.
At the time. He is freaking awesome.
He's like right up the alley with me when it comes. So last year when I did the astrological post for the coordinates that I saw in the Citadel, I had talked to him a little bit about it because he was working on something that was really similar to it too. But he's just a awesome guy. So if you guys do want him to talk to me or us to do something together, then you just tell him, and you just let them know how to get in contact with us, and we can figure something out.
Andrea, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a second because I want to suggest something. Okay, you guys, we got a lot of awesome stuff planned. We're going to be partnering up with other podcasts, all kinds of stuff going on. We love you guys. Hashtag BTIT for the win. We'll see you guys next time. Oh, and don't forget the podcast that'll get fixed soon. I'm working on it with the company. Bear with us, but we love you guys, and we'll see you next time for another great adventure of Behind the Iron Throne. Peace.